I'm Indy Nidell, and this is another exciting episode of The Great War on the Road. Now today we're going to be shooting at several locations from the Battle of Verdun, which at 299 days was the longest battle of the First World War. And in case you're wondering who these three fine, upstanding young gentlemen with me today are, these are some of the creators of the game Verdun. Now, can you say who you are and say a couple of words for all those people at home?
Yeah, so I'm Jos Huber. I'm co-founder of the Verdun project.
Okay.
And I'm from the city of Alkmaar in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands?
Yes.
Cool. And?
My name is George Jansen. I'm the level designer for the project. That basically means that I make sure the levels are fun to play and they also look good. It's also part of my job. So I'm an artist and designer.
And you're also from the Netherlands?
Yeah, I'm from the same area as Jos is.
Okay. Did you guys know each other before Verdun?
No.
No. All right, cool. And you?
I'm James Chilton. I'm the lead artist for Verdun, and I'm not from the Netherlands.
Okay.
I'm from England. And I work freelance with the project on everything from weapon artwork to character artwork.
How did you end up?
I sort of contacted Jos before finishing university, saying I had a big interest in World War One, and yeah, we've kind of been working together since.
Now I don't know if you guys know or not, but we did a live stream several months ago where we played Verdun with some of the fans, and it was a lot of fun. But it leads me to the question of all the battles in all the wars in the world, why Verdun? Why choose Verdun?
I think because Verdun is like one of the most iconic battles. It's sort of the World War One, or at least the Western Front in a microcosm, or it symbolizes the fighting on the Western Front more than, I guess, any other battle does.
No, I agree. And funny that you used a microcosm, because that's what, we've talked a lot about Alistair Horn's book. And he calls it a microcosm of the Western Front, of all its horrors and all of its glories in microcosm. And it was the longest battle. And while it didn't have the highest casualties, it had the highest casualties for the size of the battle. I mean, it's an area about the size of the London parks, right, put together. Yeah. Did you consider any other things, or was it clear from the beginning you were going to do World War I and going to do Verdun?
Well, actually, I visited this area as when I was 10 years old.
Yeah. And
when you look around here, I was immediately inspired by the battles and the landscape, and sort of gripped me, and it became a fascination from there on. And from that on, I had to make a video game about it. When I became more technical skilled, I could pick that up. And,
well, your game, Verdun, is known for being particularly realistic to the actual battle, the actual play, which is great. But what do you guys think about how it is like a computer game, a video game, to commemorate a battle or as historical education? I mean, how do you feel that really works in the modern day? Do you think it is a valid way to educate people according to history, or do you think it'll mislead people because something won't be accurate, or somebody will argue and say, I mean, what do you think? I've
always had a keen interest in history, but a lot of the history taught in schools has been a little bit boring for me, old VHS tapes, old photocopies from books. For me, the video games just brought it to life. Yeah. And an incredibly useful learning tool. I've learned a hell of a lot through. With the history and things like that, I think it's incredibly important to recognise, the mistakes that people have made in the past and how these wars have shaped our lives. And although, in today's era of, the internet and everybody's got access to, this wealth of knowledge, we're somehow, dumbing down a little bit and becoming more cocooned in our own, social media structures and things like that. So to really, kind of push the boat out and say, look, this happened. Here's it's just a medium for us to kind of commemorate what happened, but also educate on what happened, whilst also, making it as appealing as possible to, to the audience.
Well, yeah, people have to play.
Yeah.
Now, when you're dealing with level design, and obviously, as you said, you're responsible for the fun, but when it concerns like life in the trenches, and in terms of the details and in terms of the exactness and the precision, how big a role does that play for you? I mean, Where do you think on this?
So like one of the most important things I think is that we try to accurately recreate trenches to see what was it like to live in them, what kind of culture was in them. What is it like to be in a trench when you get bombed, when the enemies come over the top, when you hear the whistle going and you see people running at you. So there's a very immersive element to it, which is more than just shooting your gun. Do you join your NCO when you're in the battle, where you're getting hit? So that's more of a technical thing. So I make sure people have options.
Okay, you've got 100% absolute historical accuracy here, and you've got 100% gameplay that doesn't give a crap about historical accuracy here. Yeah. Where do you guys try to fit, like, on that line, or do you even think about that line as a line?
Well, it's been a kind of a voyage, because we started out with, for instance, in terms of the gameplay, we started out with a game mode which was more fluid, which ended up in people playing as though they were playing team deathmatch. So they were just all over the place, which was not accurate to how these battles were fought. Right. With men going over the top, charging, counter-attacking, etc., etc. So we had to enforce certain rules in order to make that flow of battle accurate. So we had to insert these elements. Okay. On the other hand, we couldn't go too far, and restricting people too far, it would be too static.
Well, yeah, because you spend 24 hours in the trenches, you might be fighting for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and I guess it wouldn't be that fun if you played 24 hours at the game.
Exactly.
And you only fought or had one bullet.
Yeah. We don't portray, digging out the latrines and things like that, which was like 90%.
An interesting game.
Digging out trench latrines. That was like a large part, or finding drinkable water in one of these shell holes, etc. That's something we don't portray, like the very human side of it. It has limitation. The format multiplayer shooter has limitation in this regard.
Now, here's a question that I know people are going to find interesting, because I find it interesting, and I assume that anything I find interesting, everybody else is going to find interesting. How long did it take to actually put the game together from the first idea? I mean, how many months, weeks, years, decades, centuries?
It was actually quite a long process. We started the first concept in 2006. Wow. So like 11 years ago.
That's a long time.
That's quite a long time ago. And first sort of as a hobby project, because I started with the two brothers from M2H. Okay. Which have a lot of experience with multiplayer games. Yeah. And we sort of started as a hobby project. We were both in college. And from there on...
Kids.
Yeah, folly. And from there on, we built a great base version. And in 2013, from there on, we picked it up. We professionalized. We got the guys on board.
How big is the crew? How many are you?
About 10 people.
10 people. That's pretty impressive. Because when you think of like Battlefield, there's tens of thousands of people.
I've seen the credit list. Yeah, you're in it.
I am. Okay, well that's all I got for right here. Now we're at Fort Douaumont, which was one of the centerpieces of the French defenses of Verdun. Now, the fort itself was not finished until 1913, and many people considered it the strongest and most easily defensible fort in all of Europe. However, when Verdun began, Douaumont fell to the Germans without a shot fired, since the garrison had been removed and it was a big mess, and the whole beginning of Verdun was a mess. Now, it remained in German hands throughout 1916. They did try one bloody, very bloody attempt to retake it in May, which was a bit of a disaster. But the French had their big counterstroke in October and took it back. Thing is, in order to prepare for that, they were really meticulous. Now, they didn't want to have any problems with water supplies, which they had during the defense of Fort Vaux. So they brought in the engineer who designed a lot of the Panama Canal, and he made them canvas portable water, water supply systems, so they would have no water problems. They also, at Steinville, they built a replica of the entire battlefield, including a full-size Fort Douaumont, and practiced on that so that the troops would be able to take it, to attack, even in fog or mist. They could do it blindfolded. And it was in weather similar to this, when the Germans thought, no, the French are not going to attack today, that the French did attack today and did manage to take back Fort Douaumont. Now, they were not the only ones who built a replica of Fort Douaumont. These gentlemen made a replica of Fort Douaumont, a digital replica, but a replica nevertheless, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we try to make the fort a one-on-one actually. We use geodata, and it's actually really interesting actually standing here right now, because we've seen all the photos, all the aerial photography, the historical photos, and the in-game scenario, and we just look at the entrance, and it's like really interesting to see the shape in its present day form.
Well, the entrance is a bit, of a wreck right now, but yours is a bit less of a wreck?
Still a wreck, but a bit less of a wreck.
A wreck.
Yeah, so we try to recreate. You mentioned earlier the 22 of May offensive. Yeah. So we try to recreate the fort in that state. Exactly.
Okay, wow.
So that proved to be a real challenge, because there's not a lot of pictures during the battle. The French made a lot of modifications at the fort after the battle.
Yeah.
The fort was in a completely different state before the battle.
Yeah.
So we try to create as much of an accurate picture as possible. Yeah, so for instance, the entrance is completely different.
It's gone.
It's gone now.
It's gone. That's a good word to use. It's gone.
Yeah.
So what we actually have in the level, what you can see here is different. Is we have actually the walls were still intact here.
Okay.
Around the gate here, the main gate, there was like a really high wall, about I think about exactly the height of what it is still at the moment.
Yeah.
And to the side there was a machine gun nest, which is not a working machine gun nest in the game, but nevertheless we have the gun ports in our model.
What's this stuff?
That stuff is probably removed railing from the inside of the fort. Once you came through the tunnel of the fort entrance, you were met then with another tier of the fort. There were multiple tiers. This sort of, this could very well be the bridge that was above the exit of the entrance. That's the railing that was all around the inside. There were very tall iron fences around sort of like the external part of the fort, along the walls as well. It was very, very difficult to attack it in its original state, but hundreds of thousands of shells later, it's a lot easier to attack it.
Well, the earthworks above were in some places 8 meters thick at the beginning, and and what the Germans didn't realize, that by late October, in some places they were only 1 or 2.
And with the walls as well, once you got to the top of the wall, each corner of the fort, or there are 5 sort of counterscarp galleries where they could fire along the inside of the walls of the fort, and of course there's a huge drop on the other side, or should be a huge drop on the other side, where it's that's where people would be trapped.
Just a killing zone.
Yeah, it's just a complete killing field. But obviously, the fort wasn't manned correctly.
No.
So when the Germans did, kind of start pushing forward and trying to sneak in and attack, it wasn't noticed.
Yeah.
During the 22nd of May attack, like the deep moat around the fort actually was no longer an obstacle, because it was so many shells.
Sure.
Like it's kind of like it's today. It's flattened out, over time.
You can navigate across this ground fairly easily. Yeah. But in its original state, you had walls that were 20, 30 feet high.
Well, shall we look at a little bit more of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. Cool.
Continuing on from the Great Gatehouse, you would then enter the interior of the fort. The first thing you would meet is the bridge over the top of the gatehouse, which would lead to fortifications on top of the gatehouse itself, and a plateau in front of the barrack area.
Okay, so that's the barracks there.
Yeah. You'd have a ring road, sort of like going round the fort itself, with one going off in that direction, one going off in that direction, meeting on the other side of the fort.
Yeah.
And this was great for supplies, ammunition, water, food, items that you would need for a really solid, sustained defence.
Yeah.
The entrances you can see at the minute, or maybe can't see due to the weather, these have changed a lot since 1916, 1917. a lot of these will have been converted, you know, during the Second World War or earlier. These saw not very much fighting,
Right.
but a hell of a lot of damage. There were hundreds of thousands of shells dropped
Yeah.
on the fort, and all sorts of things, you know, were collapsing and filling up all over the place. It was the difference between the start of the battle and the end of the battle is as vast as the difference today.
All right. Thanks.
So yeah, behind me is actually the barracks of the fort. This was not really a fighting position, but it was turned into a fighting position as, you know, the front of the fort sort of eroded because of the artillery, which extrude inwards into the barrack rooms. Behind it would be bunk beds for the soldiers to sleep in. Here actually, I think this was a shell of a big Bertha 420mm or one of the French railway cannons, which caused this impact and the barracks to collapse.
So what are we looking at here?
So this is the 155mm cannon of the fort. It could retract. It's back in its dome and fire 2 times per minute.
Which we learned from somebody's comment from out of the ether.
Exactly.
Right?
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, fans.
Yeah. There are many turrets on the fort. As you can see behind us, there's a machine gun turret and an observation turret, and there's many more in all directions of the fort. And actually, the fort is here for a reason. This is really one of the highest points on the Verdun Ridge, on the Meuse Heights.
Yeah.
And you could see in the other valley behind it. So on this side you have the Meuse Valley. On the other side you would have I think it's the Weuve River Valley.
Oh yeah, sure.
And you could see all the way to the frontier with Germany, which is if you
Okay.
take a bus from Metz, you drive across the former frontier. You drive towards this. That's pretty flat.
And
So
there's nothing stopping the wind up here, I'll tell you that.
yeah. If you could see right now,
You could see Germany.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, if the wind and the mist wasn't a deterrent, then the 155mm might well have been.
Okay.
And for that 155mm, we've got an observation turret as well.
Let's go check it out.
We have included a lot of these in the game.
Yeah.
A great deal of the fort has been modelled. Unfortunately, due to the sheer scale of the fort, we just had to tone it down a little bit. But you can see the intensity of some of the fighting
something,
here.
look at this. Something, get this.
Yeah.
Something nearly got through right here.
So this would be manned, and there'd be somebody with binoculars or some optic device saying, "Oh, there's Germans over there. Right, get the 155mm on them." I imagine this will have been occupied by the Germans because you see some of the wounding, which is basically the sort of scars of war coming in from that direction. So the French would have been a little bit miffed with this thing being here and used against them.
What's
Yeah, I
really
can-
interesting to note, perhaps also, is that these turrets they're placed in position where throughout the level in the game you can always see the turrets. So wherever you are, you always see like 2 or 3
Yeah.
of these.
Okay.
This one overlooks the entire barracks area and
Yeah,
the road
sure.
coming up, and overlooks all the high spots as well, where people would be coming over if they would be coming from the entrance side.
And it's worth noting as well that all these machine gun turrets, observation turrets, are all accessible from the fort, so you don't have to go over up and land.
Right,
I
you
mean,
just come.
where can you access, from outside here?
Yeah.
It's everything is designed, for a siege. And if you get surrounded, you can access various parts of the fort, including the external walls, through tunnels and little galleyways and things like that. It was,
you can knock this up, but you can't take it.
Oh yeah.
Actually, one of the machine gun turrets. Actually, when the French were during their attack on the fort, their failed attempt to take it, they captured part of the top of the fort. But the Germans used the machine gun turret to signal back to their own lines. The French are here, and they could do that because the French didn't stop them. They didn't know that it was used as a signaling station.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking now at something that's not actually here anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
it's actually completely gone. So remember the roads? They entered on both sides of the fort.
Yeah.
They came out on the other side. There actually used to be a row of artillery bunkers here where they stored the ammunition on this road, which would be
Okay.
going down here. But the artillery did the work. I think about 120,000 shells fired by the French alone on the fort itself. So it was completely mold over. And in the game, you actually still have those bunkers right here.
Now, how did you build them from photos, or how did you figure it out?
Well, actually, there's not a lot of photos, but there's very few like old postcards, which
Okay.
still have the original shape of the bunkers
cool.
on them.
Okay.
And actually, one of the bunkers was used as a burial place after the major accident.
Oh, the one in May, the beginning of May. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So they buried a lot of people in those things, and they shut it and sealed it up, and it's somewhere under there as well.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, and are we going down there or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Going down there.
All right. Well, lead on.
One thing I want to point out is this thing is added by the French after their recapture. This is not it wasn't present during the battles for the fort.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of very fitting with the nice stone masonry.
What's it for?
I think there's two observation
Okay.
things on this side. See here a slit,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and obviously
Alright.
with the lookout over the frontier.
Over the fog.
Yeah.
So we're following this path?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there would be 7 bunkers lined up
Okay.
along the non-existing road.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, in the game, we have another trench line, which starts right behind that turret over there.
Okay.
So we have, as you know, we have several lines you need to capture.
Yeah.
And well, during the attack, the French actually captured the top of the fort.
Yeah.
For what it was worth. A really great position to get shelled. But the Germans were still in the fort.
Yeah, they took the superstructure.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So they were here. So we created another trench line right over there.
Okay.
It's like a crow on a stone. There's like really.
Wow.
It was like
That was
really
very
creepy.
dramatic.
Yeah. So the trench line would be around here.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have the different lines in the game. So people can come up from the 2 exits of the fort and paddle over the superstructure. And then the next line would be down in the moat of the
Okay.
fort.
The Germans would have come in from this direction when attacking the fort. This moat here would have had a very tall inner wall, designed so that, you know, if anybody did get in, they had a very sort of high drop to overcome in order to attack the rest of the fort uphill. On the day that the fort fell, or when the Germans finally started to really get into the grounds of the fort, there were 2 galleries from which you could shoot from. One at that end of the wall, one at that end of the wall, which is a double facing to that end of the left-hand wall, which that one was manned, these 2 weren't manned. So the Germans were able to get in more or less unmolested.
Okay. Now this has been rebuilt some, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, we've been looking, when doing research, we're looking at online resources, and some of the fortress experts call this historical vandalism.
Okay. So it's not the way it's supposed to be.
No, actually, and this is a case where our game is more accurate than reality. Yeah, we are standing right now where, you know, the entrance, and that would be the road we described that goes around the fort.
Okay.
It would come up here and swirl around and would go inside the fort and then come out on the other side.
Well, why would they do this? Why would they build it like this?
Why would they build it like this? Well, they need to supply their...
No, I mean rebuild it like this. Why
oh,
would they?
rebuild it like that. I don't
Gross
know.
negligence.
It looks cool.
Gross negligence. Okay. See, I'm thoroughly lost, but you know exactly where in the fort we are, right?
Yeah, we would be stood more or less on the bend of the road as it curved into the fortress. There'd be a wall leading up with railings. This area would be enterable in real life, not enterable in the game. There would be a large, similar to the archway that can just be made out behind Jos.
Yeah.
There would be a large archway to the left of that, which would have been the main entrance.
Okay. And they just messed it all up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Historical vandalism.
Historical vandalism.
I suppose it's
Okay.
still a fort and it has to be defendable, so I guess that's a tiny doorway with lots of little areas to shoot from
Oh yeah.
is a
okay.
little easier to defend
Yeah, you
than a
forget
large.
it actually is
yeah.
still a fort, right?
Yeah.
They're things, you know.
Yeah, they didn't rebuild it, you know, thinking, oh, you know, let's keep it historical. They lost it, and then thought,
We don't want to lose it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it was used in World War II.
Yeah.
There was, I don't think there was any fighting, but there was soldiers stationed here during World War II.
There was a World War II?
Spoiler alert.
The hell?
you won't believe what happens next.
Okay. Oh, clickbait. All right. We're putting that in the comments, okay? Or in the caption. Shall we head over there?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool.
So this is actually really, we were like, oh, we recognize all these parts here.
Yeah.
Because I think in the game we nailed sort of the proportions of it.
Okay.
Which is, in addition to the fort they made later, it would station a 75mm cannon.
Oh, the famous French 75s. We've
Exactly.
talked about them a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's still one in there, just like a replica, I don't know.
and like with everything external to the fort in terms of like bunkers and machine gun turrets and such, again, that's accessible from inside the fort.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would be a tunnel leading from near the entranceway up to this bunker, which again we've replicated in the game.
Okay, that is all for today from Fort Douaumont, and these guys are going to leave you with a few words.
Okay, we'd like to invite you to join us in the game and fight in the trenches around Fort Douaumont and for the fort itself, but until then, goodbye.
See you next time.